This Halloween, I made the worst mistake of my life. I turned down a street that doesn't exist on any map, a place called Hollow Lane. The houses there breathe, the children wear your face, and the candy whispers your name. I thought it was just another neighborhood, but it wasn't. It was a trap, one that chooses who gets to leave. And this year, it chose me. I went trick-or-treating in the wrong neighborhood. I wasn't supposed to be trick-or-treating that night. I'm 21, too old, I know. But my little sister begged me to go with her since our parents were out late. She was dressed as a vampire princess, and I wore an old hoodie and a cracked skull mask. Nothing fancy. We started around 8:30 p.m., the sky orange and heavy with fog. The whole neighborhood was buzzing, kids running between porches, pumpkins glowing, cheap plastic ghosts swinging from trees. It felt warm, alive. Until we reached the end of our street. Past Miller's old house, there's usually a dead end. But that night, there wasn't. There was another street. It sloped down slightly, the air colder there, the fog thicker. No one else seemed to notice it, kids just turned back like always. But my sister pointed. Look, they've got lights down there. And she was right. Orange lights, dim, flickering, strung between trees like Christmas bulbs. We followed the sound of faint laughter and the crunch of leaves underfoot. The new street wasn't on the map. The houses were older, tall, narrow, and all built too close together, their windows long and dark. Yet every porch had a bowl of candy waiting. Each one had the same handwritten sign. Take one. No house numbers. No cars. No people. Still, we went house to house. The candy was strange, all old-fashioned wrappers I didn't recognize, names like Sugar Moon and Witch's Bites. The chocolate inside tasted stale, metallic. Halfway down the street, my sister whispered, "They're watching us." I laughed nervously and said, "Who?" She pointed toward the window of a nearby house. At first, I didn't see anything. But when I squinted, I realized, someone was standing there. Not behind the glass, inside the reflection. It was a face, pale and expressionless, pressed against the wrong side of the window. No eyes, just deep, black hollows. I froze. Then the light in the house flickered out. My sister started crying quietly, clutching my hand. "We should go home," she said. Yeah, I agreed, but when I turned around, the street behind us was gone. Gone. The fog had thickened, swallowing everything except the row of houses ahead. And at the very end of the street, I saw one last porch, brighter than the rest, glowing almost gold. A bowl of candy sat there, but the sign was different this time. It said, "Take one. It's yourself." I didn't understand, until I looked down. Inside the bowl wasn't candy. It was a pile of cracked skull masks. And right on top, was mine. I didn't touch the bowl. Every instinct in me screamed run, but my sister was trembling beside me, her plastic pumpkin bucket clutched to her chest. She whispered, "Alex, why is your mask in there?" I didn't have an answer. I hadn't taken it off, yet when I touched my face, it was gone. The air had changed. It felt heavy, syrupy, like breathing through wet cloth. Somewhere behind us, a door creaked open. I turned, but there was only fog and rows of faint, flickering pumpkins. Still, I could feel eyes, too many of them, watching. "Let's go home," I said, but the street didn't end anymore. It stretched on endlessly, the houses repeating, same shapes, same fences, same candy bowls. And in each bowl, under the wrappers, something faintly pulsed, like a heartbeat. We walked fast, not daring to speak. Then I heard it, soft, like a whisper buried under wind. Alex. I stopped cold. It came from the candy bucket. I reached in and pulled out one of those old-fashioned chocolates, Sugar Moon. The wrapper was cold, damp. My name was written across it in smeared red ink. When I dropped it, the whisper stopped. My sister's bucket began to shake in her hands. She screamed, spilling candy all over the cracked pavement. The pieces rolled in every direction, some burst open like eggs, oozing black syrup that steamed in the cold air. Inside one, something small and white blinked up at me. An eyeball. Human. We ran. The houses blurred together, front porches melting into shadow. Every window we passed flickered with movement, faces pressed against the glass, smiling too wide, too still. The fog moved with us like a living thing, pushing us toward that final glowing house at the end. That's when the voice came again. Only this time, it wasn't from the candy. It came from every house at once. Don't forget to say trick or treat. Hundreds of voices, men, women, children, all whispering in unison, crawling under my skin. My sister covered her ears, crying, I want to go home. But there was no home. Behind us, the streetlights flickered out one by one. The pumpkins along the porches turned toward us, literally turned, twisting their carved faces with wet sounds of tearing pulp. Their grins widened, their candlelight eyes burning bright. We sprinted toward the end of the street. The final house's porch glowed golden again, its door now open, just a sliver of warm light inside. And from within came a soft humming, like a lullaby. The same one our mom used to sing to us when we were kids. My sister stopped running. That's Mom, she whispered. She took a step toward the porch. Before I could grab her, something moved in the doorway. A figure stepped out, our mother. Her face was wrong. Her skin too pale, too smooth, like wax left too close to a flame. Her smile didn't move with her eyes. Come on, sweetie, she said in our mom's voice, reaching out a hand. You'll miss the last house. I pulled my sister back. That's not Mom. The figure's head twitched once, sharply, and her voice deepened. You always forget to say thank you, Alex. And the fog around us shifted, slowly taking shape. Dozens of silhouettes emerged, holding pumpkin buckets, each with faces that looked half melted, half familiar. Some wore masks. Some wore my mask. They whispered together, louder and louder. Take one. Take one. Take one. I don't remember deciding to run. One moment, that wax-skinned thing calling itself my mother was reaching for my sister. The next, we were sprinting down the fog-choked street, our footsteps echoing on wet asphalt that seemed to stretch forever. But it didn't matter how far we ran. The same houses kept repeating. Same fences. Same crooked porch lights. Same bowl of candy on every step. Each time we passed one, I noticed something new. The signs that used to say take one had changed. Some read eat up. Others said we're hungry too. I tried not to look into the windows, but sometimes my eyes caught the reflections inside. They weren't mirrors. They were mouths. The glass pulsed and flexed like wet skin, stretching into silent screams. Faces pressed against the inside of the windowpane as if trying to claw their way out. Their eyes tracked us. My sister stumbled, spilling what was left of her candy bucket. When I reached down to help her, one of the chocolates split open against the street, spilling not syrup this time, but something moving. Tiny pale hands, no bigger than spider legs, crawled from the wrapper and scuttled toward her. I kicked them away and grabbed her hand. "Keep moving. Don't look back." But I did. And I wish I hadn't. The houses were shifting. Their walls breathing in and out, their doors bending, frames warping like ribs cracking. The sound was wet, like meat tearing. One by one, the houses turned toward us, their porches splitting open like jaws. And then, from inside the fog, something huge began to move. At first it sounded like wind. Then it sounded like breathing. Slow, heavy, ancient. We ran until the fog thinned slightly and the glow of a single streetlight appeared ahead. Under it stood a figure, a man, tall, dressed in a tattered clown costume, his mask cracked, one eye missing. He held a lantern made from a hollowed-out skull. When he spoke, his voice sounded like dry leaves scraping on pavement. "You shouldn't have come down this street, boy." My sister hid behind me. I wanted to ask where we were, but the words wouldn't come. The man tilted his head, the missing eye socket dark and empty. "This place remembers every trick-or-treater that ever lied. Every child that ever said, 'Just one more house.' You fed it by coming here." He raised his lantern, and for a heartbeat I saw the truth. The street wasn't made of asphalt at all. It was flesh. Thick, gray, pulsing flesh. Each house rose and fell with its own rhythm, feeding off the air, the fog, the sound of our fear. I grabbed my sister's arm, but the man stepped closer. "You can leave," he said softly. "But it'll want something in return." His cracked mask shifted into a grin. "Something sweet." Behind us, the houses started whispering again. "Take one. Take one." But this time the words had changed. Now they said, "Leave one behind." The clown's lantern swayed between us, the skull inside glowing a dull orange. The light made his missing eye socket look bottomless. My sister pressed herself against me. "Alex, he's lying." I wanted to agree. But the ground beneath our shoes had begun to pulse, slow, sick thumps, like the heartbeat of the street itself. The clown's voice rasped through the fog. "You can walk back the way you came, but the street won't open unless it's fed." "What do you mean, fed?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just lifted his free hand and pointed behind us. Through the fog, one of the houses had opened wider. The porch split apart, the boards bending outward into something that looked too much like ribs. Inside, the light flickered wetly. The air smelled like rotting sugar. "Leave one behind," the whispering houses moaned again. Each word came from a different direction, like 1,000 mouths murmuring under the ground. I felt something tug at my ankle. I looked down, roots, or veins, slick and gray, wrapping around my shoe. I stomped, tore free, and grabbed my sister's hand. We bolted toward the nearest side street. It wasn't there. Every turn led back to the same place, the clown, the lantern, and the yawning mouth of that house. My sister cried, "It wants us to choose." "No," I said, "we're not playing its game." The clown chuckled, dry and hollow. "You already are." He lifted the lantern higher. The fog peeled back, and for a moment I saw shapes moving inside the other houses, children. Hundreds of them, standing behind the windows, motionless, their Halloween costumes decades out of date. Each one held a pumpkin bucket. Each one was empty. "Trick-or-treaters that never left," the clown said softly. They didn't choose either. The faces in the windows began to smile. The glass bulged outward like something pressing from inside. The whispering grew to a chant, deep and thunderous. Leave one behind. Leave one behind. My sister's hand was shaking in mine. Alex. It's saying your name. And it was. The chant had changed again. Alex stays. Alex stays. The clown stepped closer. It remembers you, boy. You came here once before, long ago. That made no sense. But suddenly I smelled something, burning leaves and caramel. A memory hit me, a Halloween years ago, when I'd wandered off while trick-or-treating. I'd found a dark street that my parents swore didn't exist. I'd woken up the next morning in my own bed, with no idea how I got there. The clown tilted his head. You tasted its candy then. Now it wants the rest of you. The ground split. A long crack tore down the center of the street, glowing from within. The air howled through it, carrying the scent of smoke and sugar and something older, something hungry. My sister's grip slipped as the pavement buckled. I caught her wrist just before she fell. Go! I shouted. Run! She shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. Not without you. The clown moved between us and the crack, raising the lantern like an offering. You can leave if one stays. That's the rule. The street groaned, houses leaning closer, their porches reaching. I looked at my sister. At the thing pretending to be a clown. At the endless fog behind him. And I said the only thing that came to mind. What if the one that stays isn't living? The clown's grin faltered. You can't trick the street. Maybe I can. I snatched the lantern from his hand and hurled it into the glowing crack. The skull shattered, spilling light that burned like liquid fire. The ground screamed. The fog exploded outward, blinding white. I felt myself being pulled backward, my sister's fingers clawing for mine, then nothing. Only silence. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. For a few seconds I lay there staring at the ceiling, waiting for the throb in my ears to fade. Sunlight cut through the curtains, bright and ordinary. Birds. Cars. A dog barking somewhere. It felt like a dream had been ripped away halfway through. Then I smelled it, burnt caramel. The same smell that had hung over that impossible street. My sister was asleep on the floor beside my bed, her costume still on, streaked with dried mud. I shook her gently until she stirred. She blinked up at me and whispered, "Did we make it out?" I didn't know what to say. We had. But I didn't know where "out" was anymore. We tried to tell Mom what happened. She said we must have fallen asleep watching scary movies. She didn't notice the dirt on our shoes or the tiny, black fingerprints smudged across the front door. When I checked my phone, every photo from last night was gone, except one. A single, blurry image of the clown's lantern glowing in fog. That afternoon, trick-or-treat decorations were still up around the neighborhood, but everything looked slightly off. The pumpkins on porches weren't carved the way I remembered. Their faces all had the same grin. And at the edge of our yard, where the sidewalk ends, a new street sign had appeared. White letters, peeling, Hollow Lane. We don't have a Hollow Lane. Not on any map. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt too quiet. I went to the window. The street outside was empty except for one kid standing under the streetlight. Too small to be alone, holding a pumpkin bucket. He lifted his head toward my window. I couldn't see his face under the mask, but I recognized it, the same cracked skull mask I'd been wearing. He raised a hand and pointed at our house. Then more shapes stepped out of the shadows. Dozens of them. Kids in outdated costumes, clowns, ghosts, vampires. Their movements were slow, jerky, like they were learning how to walk again. Each held a bucket, and inside each bucket something faintly glowed. The whispers started softly, the same rhythm I'd heard on that impossible street. Take one. Take one. But as they drew closer, it changed. Alex stays. Alex stays. I stumbled back from the window. My sister appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. You're outside, she said. Before I could answer, a knock came from the front door, slow, deliberate, 3 times. The smell of sugar and ash flooded the hall. From the other side, a voice that sounded like mine whispered. Trick or treat. The knocking didn't stop. 3 taps, a pause, 3 more. Each said a little louder, a little heavier, until the whole door shivered in its frame. My sister clung to my arm. Don't open it. I nodded, but the air inside the house had already begun to change. The lights dimmed until the bulbs glowed orange, like jack-o'-lantern flames. From the kitchen came the slow creak of cupboards swinging open on their own. The smell of sugar and smoke thickened. When I took a step back, something slid under the door. A single piece of candy wrapped in crinkled foil. The label read, Sugar Moon. The wrapper was damp, the ink running. I picked it up without thinking. It whispered. Alex, you forgot your mask. I dropped it, heart hammering, and the thing wriggled away like an insect, straight to the front window. The glass rippled where it touched, then bulged outward, forming a handprint on the inside. Our living room walls began to hum, that same low pulse I'd felt in the street. Paint bubbled, plaster cracked, as if something were breathing behind it. I grabbed my sister's wrist. We're leaving. Now. We ran through the back door, out into the yard, but the neighborhood was changing. The cul-de-sac curved wrong, houses leaning closer, their windows glowing a dull orange. New porches were growing where lawns had been, boards splitting out of the ground. Hollow Lane was building itself. At the far end of the street, beneath the only working streetlight, the clown waited. The lantern dangled from his hand again, whole, burning with that thick, honey-colored fire. You didn't choose, he said. So it chose for you. My sister shouted, What do you want from us? The clown tilted his head. Not you. Him. The one who took what wasn't his. He pointed at me. Before I could speak, the candy wrappers that littered the ground began to twitch. They unfolded into thin, papery figures, tiny trick-or-treaters made of foil and ash. Their hollow eyes burned with candlelight. They crawled toward us, whispering in voices like static. One more house, one more house. I grabbed the nearest thing, a rusted shovel from the shed, and swung. The little things burst apart, scattering ash that smelled like burnt sugar. But for every one that fell, 2 more rose from the ground. The clown raised his lantern higher. You can't kill a memory, boy. You can only feed it. The street behind him shifted again. Houses folded over each other, forming a single massive structure at the end of the block, a crooked mansion of mismatched porches and doors. Windows blinked open like eyes. Inside, faint music began to play. A slow, warped version of This Is Halloween. The clown beckoned. Come finish what you started. I looked at my sister. She was crying, shaking her head, whispering, "Don't go." But I could feel it pulling at me, the same strange gravity as before, dragging me toward the growing house. If I didn't end it, it would keep coming. It would keep building. Street by street. House by house. I squeezed her hand. "Lock the doors. Don't follow me." Then I stepped onto the road that wasn't supposed to exist and walked toward the mansion's open mouth. The fog swallowed me whole. The fog clung to my skin like cold breath. I couldn't see the street anymore, only the towering mansion ahead, pulsing faintly as if it had a heartbeat. The boards creaked even before I stepped onto the porch, whispering my name in warped echoes. "Alex. Alex, come home." The front door opened on its own. A wave of warm air rolled out, thick with the scent of rotting pumpkins and burnt sugar. The walls inside were covered in old Halloween decorations, paper bats, faded orange streamers, and black cats with cracked eyes. Everything looked like a snapshot from decades ago, preserved in dust and mold. I took a step inside. The door slammed shut behind me. The house hummed. The wallpaper shifted under the dim light, like it was breathing. And then, music started playing from somewhere upstairs. A slow, warped lullaby. The same melody from the street, "This is Halloween," played backward, each note stretched like a scream in reverse. I called out. "Who's there?" No answer, just footsteps from above. Slow. Heavy. The sound of a mask being dragged across the floor. I climbed the staircase, each step groaning. Halfway up, I noticed portraits hanging along the wall. At first, they looked normal, families in Halloween costumes, smiling in front of carved pumpkins. But as I passed them, I realized the faces were changing. The smiles stretched. The eyes followed me. In the last frame, the family wasn't smiling anymore. It was me. I froze. The boy in the portrait looked exactly like me, same jacket, same cut on the lip I'd gotten earlier that night. But the expression was wrong. His mouth was open, and something was crawling out of it, a thin, black string reaching down toward the bottom of the frame. Then the boy blinked. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The portrait bled shadow, dripping onto the stairs. And the shadow began to move. When it lifted its head, I saw my own face looking up at me, gray, hollow, lips split open like paper. "Go back," it whispered. "Before you become one of us." I ran. At the top of the stairs, the hallway forked into 3 directions, each lined with identical doors. Above every door hung a cracked mask, each one resembling a version of my face. One smiling. One crying. One screaming. The air around the 3rd door shimmered, and that's when I saw it, the faint reflection in the mask's surface. My sister, standing outside the mansion, pounding on the invisible barrier between us, her mouth open in a silent scream. But behind her, the clown. He was whispering into her ear. I didn't think, I burst through the door. The room beyond was massive, stretching farther than it should have. Hundreds of trick-or-treat bags hung from the ceiling like fruit. Each one was moving, something inside squirming, whispering faintly, "Please, let me out." In the center of the room stood a long table covered in candy. And behind it, sitting perfectly still, was a woman in a porcelain mask. She turned her head toward me. Her voice was soft but distorted, like a radio on a dying frequency. "You took a treat without offering a trick, Alex. The balance must be restored." "I didn't take anything," I shouted. "I just wanted to leave." She tilted her head. Then leave. If you can find the right door. 1,000 whispers filled the room, rising into laughter. The trick-or-treat bags began to drop one by one, spilling black syrup and bones across the floor. The air thickened until I could barely breathe. The woman raised a candy wrapper between her fingers, the same Sugar Moon brand as before. You started this when you opened the sweet. Now you'll finish it. The walls around me twisted again, forming dozens of doors, all identical, all waiting. Her voice followed me as I turned in circles, desperate, choking on the candy-scented air. Choose wisely, Alex, every wrong door costs you a face. Then she blew out the candle beside her, and the room went dark. The darkness swallowed me. The room of masks stretched forever, the whispers growing louder, closer, circling my head like the wind through dead trees. I stumbled forward, my hands brushing dozens of doors, each identical, each waiting. I tried the first one. It opened to a street. A street I recognized. Halloween night, just like the one we had left. Children ran by, laughing, parents calling after them. Pumpkins glowed on every porch. Everything seemed normal. Relief washed over me. Until I saw them. The kids' masks weren't decorations, they were faces I recognized. People I'd seen in the fog, in Hollow Lane, in those moving houses. Their smiles were wrong, stretching too wide, their eyes hollow and black. And when they saw me, they all froze. The street rippled. The houses bent, windows blinking. The children turned slowly, their voices rising into a chorus. Alex. Alex, come play. I slammed the door shut. Heart racing, I grabbed another. This one opened into my own living room. Everything was exactly as it had been this morning. My sister was sitting on the couch, staring at the floor, pale. Relief. I ran to her. It's okay. We're. But she didn't move. Her head lifted slowly. Her mouth opened in a silent scream, and I realized, she was wearing my mask. The room dissolved. Walls melted into fog. The floor became soft, pulsing. A faint glow rose from below, orange and thick as molten sugar. The whispering grew again. I tried door after door. Each one was worse. A classroom full of children staring at me. Their eyes hollow, hands outstretched. A carnival tent where shadows spun like windmills, the smell of burnt candy burning my nose. A forest of jack-o'-lanterns whose mouths gaped wide enough to swallow me whole. Each door repeated a single truth, there was no escape. I fell to my knees. The whispers swelled. You belong. You belong. You belong. Then the clown appeared at the far end of the hallway. His lantern floated just above the ground. He didn't move. Didn't blink. He just waited. You've chosen poorly, he said, his voice soft and deadly. Every wrong door brings you closer to the final treat. What do you want from us? I shouted. He tilted his head. Balance. One treats, one tricks. One leaves. One stays. The walls twisted. The masks on the hallway seemed to reach for me. My sister's voice echoed from somewhere far away, calling my name, but it wasn't her voice. It was hollow, wrong. I realized then what the clown had meant. Hollow Lane wasn't a place. It was a test. A trap. And we were the candy. I had to make a choice. Step through the right door, or risk losing everything. The hallway stretched, and the lantern's light swung back and forth. The whispers rose to a deafening roar. Choose, Alex. Or the street will choose for you. I froze in the endless hallway of doors, the whispers clawing at my mind. Each door seemed to pulse, alive, promising escape and death in the same breath. The clown's lantern swung slowly, casting shadows that writhed like living fingers on the walls. I thought of my sister, trapped somewhere in this nightmare. Her hollowed face still haunted me from the last door. I couldn't lose her. Then I remembered the first house, the one with the sign, "Take one. It's yourself." It was a trick. A lure. Hollow Lane didn't want my sister first. It wanted me. I ran to the door at the far end of the hallway. It was different from the rest, plain, black, unmarked. I flung it open. The world shifted. I was outside. A quiet street bathed in moonlight. My neighborhood. Everything was normal, silent, empty, safe. My sister ran to me, tears streaking her face. But the street behind me groaned. Hollow Lane was there. The mansion, the clown, the moving houses, all peeking from the fog, reaching, breathing. You made the right choice, for now, the clown's voice drifted through the night. But the street never forgets. I grabbed my sister's hand and ran home. Behind us, the fog swallowed the lane. The houses collapsed into themselves, leaving only the black asphalt. The next morning, the world felt normal again. I told my parents it had all been a bad dream. My sister didn't speak of it. But in the corner of my room, I found it, a single piece of sugar moon candy, wrapped and still warm, with my name scrawled in red ink across it. I threw it away. It reappeared on my pillow that night. And every Halloween since. I hear whispers outside my window. Take one. Take one. Alex. Alex. I've never gone trick-or-treating again. But I know the street waits. And it always will. Because some treats are never meant to be returned. The end.